on, RDS Warrior? Thanks for tuning in. Dean here. Today we're going to be talking about how we can get your arms huge. It's going to be a 3-part series. This one we're just going to be talking about biceps. So how to get biceps bigger, one-on-one. So stick around and I'll show you exactly how to do that. Let's first talk about what are the muscles that we're going to be targeting during these lifts and during these exercises. So since the movements are fairly similar, they're going to be targeting the same muscles. So an agonist muscle is a prime mover. Let's talk about what this means. It's mostly responsible for the movement, and obviously the main muscle is going to be worked during these exercises. So for all these movements, the agonist muscle is going to be what? You guessed it, the bicep brachii. Look at this guy, he's jacked because he does his lifts with great form and he gets stronger and stronger through progressive overload. So what's a synergist muscle? Synergist muscles are pretty much, they assist the prime mover during these exercises. So synergist muscles are the brachialis and the brachioradialis in these specific lifts that we'll be talking about. So these are extremely important for proper movement of the weight. So the stabilizer muscles stabilize the body while the prime mover and the synergist muscles work. So for bicep workouts, the primary stabilizing muscles are in your forearms. So these are pretty much your flexors and your extensors. So now let's talk about the muscle actions. So this will help you understand why the range of motion is of the utmost importance. Okay. So we'll go ahead and start off with the concentric muscle action. A concentric muscle action is when muscle develops tension while shortening. So the force being exerted by the muscle is greater than resistive force. So during a bicep exercise, this concentric action occurs when you curl the bar up or the cable up or the dumbbell up. Your bicep will become shorter in length but more bulky. So let's go ahead into the isometric muscle action. Alright, so an isometric muscle action occurs when a muscle is exerting force and equal to the force being placed on it, and there's no visible change in muscle length. So the isometric portion of the bicep exercises occurs when you hold a movement and contract your muscles as hard as possible. So you notice when I perform this hammer curl, I pause at the top for a very brief second, not overdoing it. So this is so that I can accomplish the isometric portion of the exercise. Alright, so the eccentric muscle action is when a muscle develops tension while lengthening, so the exerting force is less than the resisting force. Eccentric muscle actions occur when you are bringing the weight down in your exercise without really having gravity do any of the work. At least that's the goal. So as you see here, when I bring down the cable, my bicep lengthens. During my cable curls, I do not let gravity do the work, so keep that in mind. But you want to remember that the concentric, isometric, and eccentric portions of the movement are all equally important. So all these portions come together and create the optimal lift that will build the pathway for your muscle to grow. None of these movements actually on their own will create the results that all three put together. Let's talk about performance cues that can be applied to all of these exercises. So pay close attention to my elbow placement in the next few videos. My elbows are locked in and they're not deviating from my side, at least not too much. So it's important to keep your elbows nice and close, tucked into your torso in the same place throughout the whole movement during the lift. And a little variation is fine, like I said, but don't allow for them to go too crazy or move too out of place. Okay, so the next performance cue is to curl outward. So pay attention to my pinky in these next videos of me doing these dumbbell curls and these cable curls, and of course, you're going to want to pay attention to yourself doing these when you're doing your lifts. So you want to keep your shoulder, your elbow, your wrist, and your forearm aligned while you execute the movement. But your pinky and palm are still facing in an outward direction. Okay, so now that we've covered all the basics, let's go ahead and jump into the specifics for each exercise. So dumbbell curls are pretty straightforward. Obviously, I can't really tell you much about doing dumbbell curls, but I can tell you what's optimal and what's not optimal. So it's really important to remember not to swing the weight. Naturally, when things get a little bit tougher, and you do get tired, you're going to be swinging the weight a little bit, and this is okay, but just make sure that when you perform the whole set that you're not swinging throughout the whole set. Otherwise you're going to bypass the necessary development and the time under tension, and you won't be stimulating your muscles like you would like to. For both the easy bar curl and the reverse easy bar curl, you're going to want to keep that grip of the bar in the proper position to maximize this lift. So you want to grip the bar on the wide outer handle. For the easy bar curl, your palm should be facing upward, and of course for the reverse easy bar curl, your palm should be facing downward. And I also want you to note that when you're doing this reverse easy bar curl, what I found that maximized the stimulation in the flexors and extensors is when I have my wrist curled up a little bit. So think about it, if you ride a motorcycle, you're curling your wrist up to give it the gas. You're pretty much having your knuckles face your shoulders, so to speak. So if you try that with me right now, have your knuckles face your shoulders, and you're going to feel that flexation in your muscles in your forearms. So as you perform these easy bar curls, these reverse easy bar curls, I've noticed that when you do this specific movement, it'll induce more tension while you're doing the lift. So go ahead and give that a shot in your next approach to these exercises. To perform cable curls optimally, the position of the pulley should be on the lowest setting. You're going to want to double check that pulley and make sure it's secure to prevent any kind of freaky accidents from happening, because I've seen it happen before. Anyways, align the pulley with the line of the pull of your bicep so that the pulley and the cable are in direct line with your elbow. So grab that handle on the end closest to your torso. Grabbing the handle on the end allows for you to curl outward in a more natural fashion. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at some hammer curls and some hammer curl cues. So look at the way I'm grabbing this dumbbell. I'm grabbing it in the middle of the grip. It's not on the way on the top, so the weight is not resting on my palms or on my hands. I'm grabbing it right in the middle, and I'm making sure that I have that cue to pause for about like a second. So not really much a second, it's like half a second. If you are unable to grab that weight in the middle of the dumbbell grip and it's getting too heavy where that weight is resting on your first finger and your thumb, it's just resting there, then that's not optimal for the lift and you're gonna have to lower that weight. So let's go over these exercises for the biceps. So the way I like to structure these is to pretty much do these workouts over the course of 2 or 3 days. It's up to you how you want to spread them out, but usually 2 to 3 days is what I go for. So let's run through this whole overview again, just to make sure we understand exactly what we've just discussed. So you want to apply the same range of motion to all these exercises. So go all the way up, complete the concentric portion of the movement at the top, and hold and contract for about less than half a second to complete the isometric portion. And then of course go all the way down without losing tension to complete the eccentric portion. And remember, we're not letting gravity do any of the work on these isolation type exercises. So also be mindful of your elbow placement during your exercises. Keep them close to your torso and relatively in the same place. Lastly, be sure to curl your weight in an outward direction. Try these out in your own lifts and exercises, and you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Also, be sure to check out my back video on how to develop a strong back with the 3 key lifts that I always do, that I've had in my training plan for the past 10 years, and how you can carve a Hercules-like back. All right, so check that out. It'll be in a link in the description below. And yeah, I will see you there.